Hi, everyone. This is Stephanie Mann at the Safe Kids Now show, and welcome. I am so excited today to have an amazing lady. So many of us wonder, what can I do when things look bad or when I see things that aren't going the way they should go? And I'm sitting there and I feel powerless. Well, here is a lady, her name is Paula Flo, who didn't think she was powerless at all, and she even went from Hawaii to Washington, D.C. to sit on the steps of the Supreme Court to make a difference. So come in, Paula. So happy to have you join us. Okay. Hello, how
Hi.
are you?
I,
It's so good to see you. We first met in 2006.
yes.
And where were you living at that time? And what motivated you to get started in this process called The Hitting Stops Here?
Oh my gosh. Well, when I met you, to answer that question, I believe I was still in California. I think I was in San Jose at that time. And
Okay.
yeah, and I moved to Hawaii where I continued the campaign in 2010. And here I am still.
Yes. Well, now you were in Hawaii, and what motivated you to go from Hawaii to Washington, D.C., and how long were you there?
Okay, well, I knew that I needed to go to Washington, D.C. in order to be heard or if there was any chance. And at that point, like I said, I was all the way in Hawaii, so pretty far away. And at that time, also, the U.S. federal bill that the wonderful McCartney helped to create was in D.C. at that time. And so she's such a wonderful woman. She allowed me, as well as one other activist, we were working together to help with a federal bill, which is available right now still is HR 1234, and the bill's title is Ending Corporal Punishment in Schools Act. So my primary work was to have a bill become available for our children. And Carolyn McCarthy, who's such just an amazingly wonderful woman, was willing to craft this bill. And she had already experienced a tragedy of in her own family, wherein her, if you're familiar with Carolyn McCarthy, you are familiar with the tragic shooting that took place on the New York City subway that took the life of her husband. And it was through a person who also was abused as a child. So that expression, violence begets violence, is very true. So that's where this all began. She was very willing. She did not initially have support from the U.S. Education Committee on the bill, and she didn't receive not even half of the members being supportive of this bill. But she put it out anyway, and she was in two more Congresses, and then when she resigned, the wonderful Florida Representative Alcee Hastings continued to submit it, and he submitted it this last time in January of last year, and he passed away April of this year. So that's very sad, and it is also a sign that I dread that perhaps there may not be anyone else on the Ed Committee who will be willing to resubmit it if we don't get it through this last time.
Well, the hitting stops here. What motivated you to begin this in the first place? Because it obviously motivated you enough to go from Hawaii to Washington, D.C. So what was that motivation for you?
That question is it's almost a hard question for me to answer. But yeah, I did grow up with a parent who used to belt on us. And I never thought that was the right way for me to be treated, nor my siblings. Mm-hmm. And sadly enough, during the time that I was there in 2016, one of my brothers who suffered from adult depression as a result of it, we lost him. I'll put it like that. And I know it was related to the amount of stress he endured as a child. And, it was the saddest thing to be out there fighting for something because of how much I love children and, of course, love my brother dearly. And during such a fight, the amount of stress that the abuse that he faced caught up with him to the point where he just didn't want to live anymore. And so it's not a little deal to me that teachers have the right to beat kids when I know it's hard for a child to grow up when a parent is that way. And at least in school, you can say, well, that's a teacher. She doesn't like me. Or that's a principal. He doesn't like me. But when you are being hurt by someone who you believe loves you, then it has a different impact on you.
Your story is similar to mine. I saw my brother being abused years ago. I was not the victim of abuse, but he was. And it basically destroyed his life. And he's been gone 35 years now.
Oh, my gosh.
So, I don't know why boys are sometimes victims of their father's abuse. Perhaps it's because they were abused as children.
Yes.
Because I learned that from my father. He was abused by his father. Mm-hmm. So I think this is intergenerational, that abuse continues from one generation to the other. Yes. And it's sad. But
it is. It's very sad. And I think it's mostly sad because when it goes down to that next generation, I honestly believe that child who's now a parent believes somehow that this is the right thing to do. And I'm really glad that I did not take that perspective. I have never, ever hit my daughter, and I can't even imagine hitting her. And I even as a child grew up like I would never hit my child, Yeah. And so it breaks my heart when teachers have the right to do that, because it is not professional any more than a police officer pulling out his, I think they're called billy sticks or billy clubs, and striking somebody because they jaywalked or something. It's like, what right do you have to do that?
Yeah. Well, now, how many states are involved in the hitting of children in school? And you mentioned even with a paddle.
Yes.
Is that still legal in some states?
Yes, this is quite legal. And the sad answer to that is, number one, in our private schools nationwide and our U.S. territories, it's legal for this to happen in private schools, all states. It is legal to happen in public schools, and all except, I believe, 2 U.S. territories. I got to remember the other one, but it was St. Thomas, and I don't know why it's escaping me the other territory that banned it. But those 2 U.S. territories and 19 U.S. states currently still allow teachers to use that wooden board to strike children.
You know, that's hard to believe. Do you think they're actually doing that, or is it one of those laws that hopefully people ignore and don't do that anymore? What? I'm not sure.
It's absolutely still happening, and it's happening in that's just the U.S. This is happening in Kenya. This is happening in many states overseas. I mean, nations overseas. This is why I feel really sad about the lack of support for this bill in our country, because we will not only be helping our children here in the USA, we're going to help all the kids on all the territories. We're going to help the kids overseas. It has already been made known. I've gone to several rallies, and there was one in Washington, D.C. that I attended right outside of the Capitol building. And it was made clear there through several speeches that the nations outside of the U.S. refuse to ban until we do. So that to me is such a huge thing. All these kids that we'll never see, will never know, will have lives that are more safe. You know,
Why would they refuse to ban that until we in the United States refuse to? I don't get that connection.
because we are known as, and we are the flagship nation of the world. We are the flagship nation. And these countries feel like, well, if it's okay in America, they're the flagship, it must be okay. And so they hide behind that because there's a sense of integrity that they feel, well, the best country's doing it, so we're just doing what they're doing. And unfortunately, that isn't the best thing, it's the worst thing. And overseas where it's happening, it's if you were to just do a very simple, quick form of research on the type of corporal punishment going on overseas, I think that it would be quite alarming. What we're doing here is bad, but there's a whole nother level of it in different countries on the continent of Africa, on the continent of Asia, and it's widespread, and we can make it go away.
Oh, I know. You know, we can make things happen, but we have to get involved and
Yes.
we have to be knowledgeable.
Yes.
We were going to take a short break and then we're going to be right back and find out exactly who's involved in this and what we can do personally and more about the federal bill that's coming
Okay.
up. Okay, we'll be right back.
I lift up my heart to you. If I open my mouth to give you the glory, it would be hallelujah. We sing hallelujah. We lift our hands to give you glory.
Throw and Tuck. Throw and Tuck. It's handmade by myself, and you only can get it here, and it's patent, and it's only here at Rococo Design. It's like a regular pillow, or you can take the blanket out like so, fluff up the pillow, open up your blanket, wrap it around yourself, and then you can lay on your sofa and relax with your pillow, throw and tuck. When you're done with it, just flip it over. When you don't want the blanket anymore, you just fold it over twice. Fold it over twice again. Fold it over. And tuck it in the back. And there you go. You're back to the pillow, throw, and tuck. Rococo Design.
Okay, we are back and we are talking today with Paula Flo. And Paula is in Reno, Nevada, and she is a transplant from Hawaii, and she made such a difference by going to Washington and sitting on the steps of the Capitol, well, the Supreme Court,
Yeah.
and making a statement about the hitting stops here and about federal bills. So, Paula, tell us, what kind of a difference did that 10 months in Washington, D.C., how did that help? Or what happened as a result of your sitting there on the Supreme Court steps? What happened?
Well, I would say that one of the things I enjoyed doing was speaking to people. People, that's a big sightseeing spot. And so I was able to talk to many people who were visiting Washington. Most people did not know this was going on at all. I met one group that was protesting there. I can't remember what their issue was, but they were from Alabama. And one of the people who's leading was telling me that she went through that and that is still going on in her state. And I was like, I know, it's one of this 19. And so the experience was one that I had to feel like whatever I could do has to start here, because this is where the government is. And I, being inexperienced, really didn't know, okay, who do I see? Where do I go? I, of course, went to the U.S. Education Committee chairman, and my first time there met Carolyn McCarthy's the people who work for her, and they were very happy about what I was doing. They had it on their screen in there that we were there. It was very encouraging. Her office was very encouraging. But the other members of the committee were not supportive of Carolyn. And like I said, the sad thing is the tragic death of her husband, I believe, came from a child who was abused. And I just felt like her peers could have been more supportive of this because of such a huge loss. I mean, it was a crime against somebody's body. Her son was also impacted, but not to the degree that the dad was. And I went to so many offices. The only office that, like I said, was very interested was that of Alcee Hastings, who, like I said, recently passed. But the rest did not seem interested. If you were to Google the website, the Bill H0123, you will find maybe 2 people on the entire U.S. Education Committee are supporting this bill.
Maybe you can explain to us why they were not supportive. I mean, hitting a child with a board or capital punishment in schools, why weren't they supportive?
I believe that there is, it's sad to say that money is such a motivator, either in receiving it or in losing it. I'm not really sure, but I know that there is money made in children being rushed to the hospital from the school. I know that money is made in children turning out to become hitters themselves, okay, wife beaters maybe, abusing their children, committing crimes. These things can happen. And then you get these parents or these children ending up in jail. So now you have free labor. When you commit a crime, you go to jail. If you're in there for a certain length of time, generally you are going to work. I do know 2 people right now in jail who are working. And they're making very little. If they were doing the same thing outside of prison, they wouldn't. So I kind of feel like there's some tie in there with crime and the money that's made through crime.
We had a question up from Rebecca, and I can't, let's see. She says, thank you, Paula, for educating people about abuse. It's time to use intelligence and wisdom to teach our children, not abused. Okay. I too had a physical abusive father. God bless you, Rebecca Kimball.
Rebecca, thank you.
Yes. I can't say enough about how many people I have met over the years that were abused by a parent, a relative, someone in school, and then you have the bullies. You have all kinds of obstacles that children have to overcome, and we need to take a look at school beatings and school abuse of behavior toward children. So, do you have any stories about other people that have come up in abusive situations at school?
Um, I do know of some who are in political roles that are popular, and I hesitate to mention their name. I am writing a book called God Somewhere Over the Rainbow right now, and I do not mind at all mentioning their names in the book. But
Well, without names, you don't have to use
yeah,
names.
yeah, but I have been, it's kind of sad to say that I have been laughed out of offices. I have been pushed out of offices, and or just, okay, sign your name and do this. And these are our tax-paid dollars going to these people who have a voice and have a way to make this right. So I would just say that in my stories, as far as going to the levels of where we can receive help, that there's a huge missing of concern, of taking the issue seriously, and of thinking in terms of a child's life. Like, in other words, what I find in the background of all of the apathy is the fact that, you know what, there's a dollar to be made on a child who's been abused, period. They're the ones that are going to take the lower paying jobs because they're going to quit school. A lot of kids who have been abused in school, they drop out. A lot of kids who have been abused commit suicide. A lot of kids who have been abused have divorces, or they have poor relationships that may end in a broken family or divorce. And there's money to be made on these kinds of losses. And so I really think that those who have the power to have this happen are more money oriented than obviously family and love oriented, because this is not a difficult problem to stop.
I couldn't agree with you more. As a matter of fact, we as taxpayers,
Yes.
we pay $220 million a day on child abuse and neglect in this country.
That's right.
Somebody's making an awful lot of money because
Yes.
these problems could be solved. We need cohesive neighborhoods. We need cohesive families. And what do you see in the way of strengthening the family today? I don't see much. The church is supposed to be strengthening the family, but I don't even hear them saying things as simple as all of us are spiritual beings.
Yes.
I don't hear some basic stuff being talked about from the church. What do you hear?
Well, I'm finding the same thing. And, I don't like talking a whole lot about 501c3 churches, but they are businesses. And the sad thing is that when they get rid of it, like Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., he was the last non-501c3 church. And it's because he talked about these types of things. And in the past, when Martin Luther King was a little boy and, years prior, people could go to each other. They could go to the church. The church was all about these types of things. And now there's like this muzzle that says you cannot talk about politics under this umbrella of church. And that's not what the Bible says. The Bible says protect children. It says to love one another. And in protecting children, we're not only loving ourselves. I mean, I find it sad that we are allowing our children to face conditions that create unsafe, like your whole organization is about having safe kids, yet we allow things in our schools on a daily basis that contribute to our social life being unsafe. And the sad thing is that these children, they may be in low income neighborhoods, but without the abuse, they could probably rise up. When you've been abused, you're depressed, maybe you don't even want to go to school. you know, your dreams die because you feel so powerless. You feel hurt, and there's this big monster out there. Now, by the time you're 18 years old, there's been so much damage that you don't realize, well, these are just people who were using their power in an abusive way. And I'm going to move on with my life. I thought I was a bad boy. I thought I was a bad little girl, but they just abused their power on me. It's a rare person who can look at their circumstances of abuse and turn it around and still be okay. Now, one thing I have to say that I think helped me through the time of my childhood when my dad, I believe he loved me, and I believe he thought that's what he had to do to make me a good girl. But I do remember when I was being hit with the strap, in my mind, I said the whole time, I'm a good girl. I don't deserve this. I'm a good girl. I don't deserve this. And I was like 8 or 9 years old, but I wanted to be okay. And I didn't want to accept I'm bad. That's why I'm getting this. And so, and I remember also saying there's something wrong with that. That was what I was saying as an 8-year-old child, when I went through that episode. And I really believe that's what made the difference, where I didn't grow up with depression, where I did have a sibling who grew up and experienced it more as I'm not okay, I'm not good, I'm bad, I deserve this. And
that's what every child needs to say to themselves, because we've got 10 million children. Well, it's between 5 and 10 million children that are in abusive homes. Mm-hmm. And they need to know that they're okay, that they are not, that they cannot accept the fact that they are a bad kid, because, there's so many children that have amazing inner abilities. Yes. They have undiscovered talents. They have imagination. They have instincts which can protect them and keep them safe. Mm-hmm. They have intuition to guide them. I mean, there is so much every spiritual human being has. So my feeling is that this is a spiritual problem. This is not a human problem. I mean, it's something that we all can, if we know about it, we can tap into our own spirit. How would you interpret that?
You know what? I see what you're saying, and it has two sides to it. When you say a spiritual problem, one of the spiritual problems is that people confuse Jesus saying, it says protect the children from the hands of the evil one. But the Old Testament says spare the rod, spoil the child. But people don't realize that the rod was used to guide, to protect, and to have something that the sheep would follow. So, or if they were going off in the wrong direction, the hook on the end of the rod would pull the sheep in. So I believe a lot of people who, I mean, throughout this whole campaign, all I ever hear is spare the rod, spoil the child, when people are unwilling to support it. And I'm like, the rod was not something used to beat the sheep. It pulled them away. It had a pointed in on the tip to ward off the enemy, a fox, a wolf, an animal of some sort. And it was held upright for them to follow, to go in the right direction. So when people say spare the rod, they're speaking about a rod of abuse or of punishment. And that is not the meaning of the word when Jesus said it or when it was in the Bible. It was an instrument of protection, nurturing, and taking care of.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Well, is there anything that you would like to add that you haven't been able to state yet?
I would like to invite everyone to visit my website probably in about 2 weeks. I'm in the middle, like I said, I've been doing some traveling. I've been very busy. So I have some things that are old, but they're still important. But I will be updating my website in the month of June, and maybe sometime around Father's Day, if people would go visit it and share it. We're going to be telling people how they can help. We're going to make sure people know that if HR 1234 fails, again, Ending Corporal Punishment in Schools Act, if it fails this time, it will likely not go in ever again, because the first person who initiated has resigned. The second one who kept it going just passed away. and there was no one else on the committee willing to submit it. So if it's in now, it expires January of 2023, and it may never go in again. And if that happens, our kids will be subject to beatings in who knows till how long, let alone kids overseas who are being abused. And I want everyone to know also that I will be, when I'm putting up my new website, there are certain nations where the abuse of children in schools, it far outweighs what we're doing here in the USA. And I will be putting up some some videos for them to see, because helping us here in the US, you'll be helping those kids overseas who are facing the same or worse. And that's what we want. We want a world that works, that's happy, and that teaches good examples. That's what we want.
Absolutely. What is your website?
thehittingstopshere.com. .net. So and then the word hitting, HITTING, stops here.net.
Well, that's great. Thank you so much for joining me today, Paula, because I think this has been very enlightening. I think most of us don't want to see our children injured in any way, and we want to support them and love them. So the way you do that is to stop the hitting that's going on in our homes, in our schools, and wherever children are getting abused. So thank you so much for joining me today.
I am so grateful to be here. I want to just add one last sentence.
Okay, please do.
PositiveDiscipline.com by Dr. Jane Nelson. She will give you all of the information in her material. She has several books out, and those books and workshops that she offers will help you learn how to raise your children in love and without hitting. And
okay, that's positive.
Family.
Positive. Say it again.
Positive Discipline. Yes, and I'm not sure if it's .com or .net. I think it's .com. But Dr. Jane Nelson, Nelsen, she is the author of it, and you all need to read her first book, which is entitled Positive Discipline. I have a copy myself, and it's a wonderful book for all parents.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, and I wish you well in the future, and we'll stay in touch, okay?
Thank you so much for having me, Stephanie.
Okay.
All right.
Bye-bye. Oh, that was great. I just love talking to Paula Flo. It's been since 2006 that I have known Paula, and she is making a difference. And all of us can make a difference. Just find your niche, find what is really concerning to you, and get involved. So we will look forward to seeing you next week at 1:00 on aaumedia.com. Thank you for joining us. Peace and love.
If I lift up my heart to you, if I open my mouth to give you the glory, it would be hallelujah. We sing
You're listening to All About Us Radio. We're live streaming 24/7, playing old school versus new school. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram at AAU Media, and visit our website www.aaumedia.com. Call us at 1-833-369-1444, extension 1, and leave us an inspirational message or request. You're listening to All About Us Radio.